there yesterday. We have seen a good bit, though, of Jackson Dart as well. And how about Falcons camp? Michael Penix Jr. to Kyle Pitts. That's a connection that the Falcons are hoping continues to have great benefits for this offense. Getting Kyle Pitts to reach that full potential could be great for this offense. And then there's Aaron Rodgers, his first practice out there with the Steelers. He's getting ready to go, showing what he can do. And this was just moments ago. And in fact, right after this, he spoke with the media. So here's more from Aaron Rodgers after he just finished practice.
This team is built to win a Super Bowl, to make a Super Bowl run. When you see the moves this organization has made, do you feel like this team is headed in that direction?
I think most of the 32 teams would probably say something to that accord at this time of the year. But I think that there's really only 6 to 8 that really have a legitimate chance. Sometimes it's 10 to 12, and there's teams that surprise you. But I would say on paper we're probably one of those 10 to 12.
All right, so Lindsay, how much should we expect to see from Rodgers on the field this summer leading up to week 1?
Yeah, I'm told that he's expressed a willingness to play in the preseason, but they're really just playing it by ear. They want to practice. As you heard before, Mike Tomlin has said that he is a workaholic, but they want to do whatever they can to get him ready, whatever he feels he needs to get ready. That's what they're going to do. So there's no firm plan in place right now when it comes to looking ahead to the preseason games and exactly where they see Aaron Rodgers fitting into that.
Damian, Rodgers' preferred style is much different, right, than the offenses that we've seen from Arthur Smith, their offensive coordinator, over the years. They know each other, though. How do you see these two meshing?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the Aaron Rodgers style offense, it's very stoic. There's not a lot of motion. Everything is static and stuff like that. Whereas Arthur Smith, he wants to incorporate motions, different personnel groupings. So I do think there's been a meeting of the minds this offseason to kind of mesh the two systems together to ultimately make Aaron Rodgers feel as comfortable as possible. I think the one thing that you're going to see in this Steelers offense, you're going to see that two tight end personnel grouping a lot, because I think Aaron Rodgers throughout his career has had a lot of success with two tight ends on the field. Obviously, we saw the Pittsburgh Steelers trade for Jonnu Smith to go with Pat Freiermuth. I think that will be the personnel grouping that'll get cooking a lot in this situation.
I think you might see 3, by the way, with Darnell Washington as a blocker / kind of de facto offensive lineman. To me, the one thing that Rodgers and Arthur Smith should agree on is the importance of running the football. If this offense has Aaron Rodgers throwing it 30-plus times a game, I can tell you right now it's not going to be successful. They have to be a run-first team, and that's something that they've invested in, right? In the 3rd round of the draft this year, the Steelers took Caleb Johnson, who I think is a really good fit for Arthur Smith's outside zone run scheme. The interior of the offensive line has been excellent. They've drafted really well there. It's those tackles, I think, that could determine whether or not this is successful on the ground. Broderick Jones firmly entrenched on the left side. Troy Fautanu coming back from an injury season. That's where this thing sinks or swims, in my opinion. And I'm not just saying that because Damian's on the show today, but I really feel like they got to run the ball better, and it starts with the young offensive line.
Yep.
Yeah, well, listen, we like to play to the big men, but facts mean it either way. As we all know, Rodgers opens the season versus his former team in the Jets. The scriptwriter, conspiracy theorists are like, what is that? But I'm curious, how good is this Steelers team going to be? Are they one of the 8 teams that could win the Super Bowl in your mind?
I always say, when people ask me who are are they a Super Bowl contenders? I'll tell people every time, if you make the playoff, you have a chance.
Okay.
Coach always told us, if you make the tournament, you have an opportunity. I think the real key for the Pittsburgh Steelers is, Mina already touched on it, how well can they run the football and protect Aaron Rodgers? Again, you're asking a 42, soon to be 42-year-old quarterback to take you places that you don't see many 40-year-old quarterbacks go outside of Tom Brady. So they got to be able to establish a line of scrimmage in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think the challenging thing is I view them as the 3rd best team in their own division, right? I know Bengals have major issues on defense, but that should be a top 5 offense. So when you look at it from that point of view, you're competing with maybe the Broncos and the Chargers for a wild card spot. This is a team that obviously was in the postseason last year with up and down quarterback play, and that gives you some hope. But Aaron Rodgers isn't just a 40-plus old quarterback. He's a 40-plus old quarterback coming off of one of the worst seasons of his career. That gives me a little bit of skepticism about that.
Yeah, it's worth noting the numbers in the last few seasons. And let's get to some top stories here. A couple major names still not at camp. We got Lindsay here for the latest. Get us started with Terry McLaurin out in Washington.
Laura, you mentioned Terry McLaurin still not at camp as he seeks a new deal. But Adam Peters says they've had some good conversations. Dan Quinn, on the other hand, saying that this is not something he's going to get too worked up about. This is the business side of football. Of course, they would like to see Terry McLaurin back in camp sooner rather than later.
And then how about Trey Hendrickson?
Trey Hendrickson still in Jacksonville, hanging out on the beach trading for football, even though he's not at training camp. Obviously, he is holding out. He wants a new extension in Cincinnati. They got deals done for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. No update, or I should say no progress on a contract for Trey Hendrickson, so time ticks on in Cincinnati.
We're going to keep an eye on that for sure. Hendrickson led the league with 17.5 sacks last season. No other Bengal had more than 5. There's no doubt he is one of the best in the league. And Joe Burrow and the Bengals have started slow out of the gate. Burrow has won just 38% of his games in weeks 1 through 5, compared to winning almost 2/3 of his starts from week 6 on. His total QBR, touchdown to interception ratio, and yards per attempt are all significantly higher after he gets past week 5. The Bengals face the Browns and Jaguars in the first 2 weeks, and then have to face Minnesota, Denver, and Detroit the following 3 weeks. It's significantly important to get those first couple wins. New on NFL Live, All-Pro wideout Jamar Chase has high expectations for the season, including a fast start.
Win the division first. So we do it all every year. Win the first game. So we're going to make a mark.
All right, Lindsay, what more can you tell us about Zach Taylor's preseason plan that may help him start a little bit faster?
So they want to get going a lot faster, right? So Joe Burrow is actually planning to play more in the preseason than he ever has before. Exactly how much that is, Zach Taylor hasn't said, but it's more than it's been in the past. And this is really interesting, Laura, because there's 2 kind of schools of thought. Now, you either play your starters in the preseason or you don't, right? Do you wrap your quarterback in bubble wrap or keep them out there in the fire? And I know Zach Taylor coming up under Sean McVay, he saw both sides work. In 2017, Sean McVay played all of his starters and that offense was absolutely humming. In 2018, he didn't play his starters and they went to the Super Bowl. So there's no exact science to this, and it seems like Zach Taylor's really trying to figure out what works best to get them going fast.
Yeah, Lindsay makes a really good point bringing up the Rams example, because there's really no one-size-fits-all answer to this. We always have this discussion in the preseason. Should you play your starters? Does it work? And my answer is always, it depends on the preference of the player. I know when I watch Patrick Mahomes in the preseason, and he does play in the preseason, I'm always like covering half of my face because I can barely stand to see him. It makes me so nervous, but clearly that has worked for him. Tom Brady sometimes played in the preseason. In my opinion, it really comes down to the personal preference of Joe Burrow. If he feels like he needs it to get a faster start, if he wants to build that chemistry early on, I don't know if it's chemistry at this point, they played together a long time, then more power to him. And, obviously that comes with a little bit of risk, but it's football. There's going to be risk, and I feel like ultimately it's up to the player.
Whatever they've been doing, it ain't working. so listen, obviously we've talked about, Patrick Mahomes playing in preseason. The other guys have been bubble wrapped. And so I think, it seems like Joe Burrow is kind of taking the bull by the horns here and saying, you know what? I need to change my approach to how I get prepared for the season. Yeah. And if that means playing more in the preseason, so be it. If Joe Burrow's going to be out there, guess who else is going to be out there? All the other starters are going to be out there as well.
Yeah, let's look back at that schedule, the way they begin the season, because we mentioned the Browns and Jags, but then they see Minnesota. Let me go back to this. Detroit. Oh, there it is. They've got Denver. They're going to be a great team. The Vikings before that, Lions, Packers. I mean, D-Wood, when you see all that, how important is it to get off to a good start?
You better come out the gate 2-0.
Yeah.
You better come out the gate 2-0, because that right there, I mean, listen, the Cincinnati Bengals can score with anyone, but when you look at Denver, Lions, Vikings, Packers, that's the creme de la creme right there. So you need to come out of the blocks fast.
Yeah, all 3 of those defenses were in my top 10 defenses ranking this offseason. Denver, I had as the #1 defense in the NFL. We know what Minnesota has been. So that is quite the gauntlet. And I think for Cincinnati, you're looking at the other side of the ball every week, especially with all the questions with Trey Hendrickson in the pass rush, and wondering, do I have to put up 40 points, in these games? Well, some of them, yeah, and that is daunting on its own.
Yeah, the Bengals had the 3rd best offense in the NFL from week 9 on last season, but we all know that was George Pickens doing George Pickens things. One-handed catch from Dak Prescott, by the way, is going to speak in just a little bit. As soon as we hear from him, we will bring that to you right here on NFL Live, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, let's read and react, although I didn't want to cut away from that video. That was pretty impressive.
That was pretty sweet.
Woo! Let's talk from some sound of camp around this week. It feels like every August there's buzz about a breakout season for Kyle Pitts. We were just talking about it in the break, D-Wood. Second-year quarterback Michael Penix Jr. already has his sights set on his star tight end.
I can't beat the ball today. There's going to be a lot of that.
D-Wood, is this finally the year that we see Pitts reach his very high potential? I want to know. Fantasy owners want to know. Go ahead.
I mean, if not now, then when? He's literally in the last year of his rookie contract. And the one thing about Kyle Pitts, he's been underutilized ever since that rookie year where you thought, oh, man, this guy's going to be the next generation tight end. You know, he just hasn't had the type of numbers, and I know you've been dealing with injuries, but when you got a strong-armed, accurate quarterback like Michael Penix Jr., you got to find creative ways to get him, create mismatches with these guys because he's a great athlete. So the coaching staff down there has to find ways to take advantage of that advantage.
And you just hope he stays healthy. And that's been one of the big reasons. By the way, Pitts averaging just 20 receiving yards per game from week 9 on last season. Michael Penix Jr. going to look a whole lot better if he steps up as well. All right, let's go to Carolina next, where head coach Dave Canales thinks Bryce Young will have a very talented group of wideouts to throw through this fall.
I think that the sky's the limit for this group. I think that this is going to be a very competitive team. I don't think people are going to want to play us by the style of football that we play. I'm expecting that. My expectations are really high for this group. They are every year, and we're going to shoot for it as good as we can get. My language to the group is I want to make sure we maximize the talent in this room. That'll take us as far as we need to go, but that's going to be our focus.
What do you think about the Panthers wide receiver room?